University of Holy Cross, a century of teaching the mind and heart, is made possible by Phyllis M. Taylor, Joseph and Sue Ellen Canizero, Dr. and Mrs. David Buck Landry, Marianites of Holy Cross, the Ray and Jessica Brandt Family Foundation, Scott and Jane Wolfe, Philip and Donna Blanchard, Joe and Aaron Caruso, Jerry and Jack Stumpf Jr., Gulf Coast Bank and Trust Company, 5th District Savings Bank, and by James and Marcia Hubbard, Milton and Susan Lackey, Mike and Terry Lopez, and Ken and Betty Tedesco.
And as we were planning our wedding in 1985, she said to me, you know, I'm willing to be married to you, but I'm not going to be married to a man that doesn't have a college degree. And like a week later, I found Our Lady of Holy Cross College.
You're taught service. You're taught that if God has given you much, much is expected. And so part of a Holy Cross education is service, is giving back to the community.
To me, that's what the world needs. It needs more of that cultivating of the heart. You can have all the brains you want, but if you don't have that compassion, which comes back to our Marianite charism, then we're not going to change the world.
Through the people that you talk to, they'll all have their human interest story that goes back to the generosity of these religious that started in France 200 years ago, and came to Louisiana. Who would have known?
The year was 1841. The first wagon train arrived in California. A New Orleans man invented Venetian blinds. William Henry Harrison became the first U.S. president to die in office. He served for just 1 month. Far away in France, a new beginning. Father Basil Moreau founded the Marianites of Holy Cross, a growing congregation of sisters who would travel to faraway mission fields, including the strange and wild new world called America. They would bring with them the desire to spread the gospel and the love of education.
One phrase that really is used in all of the Holy Cross institutions is, the mind will not be cultivated at the expense of the heart, not only for the next life, but for this life as well.
In those days, the mission of many religious men and women would expand in response to a desperate call for help.
And the history of schools in New Orleans is the story of yellow fever, typhoid, and malaria. So Bishop Antoine Blanc issued a call to all religious communities in the United States to come here and staff orphanages because people were dying.
As epidemic after epidemic spread through the New Orleans area, more and more children were left alone. In 1849, 3 of the Marianite sisters heard the call for help and hurried to St. Mary's Orphan Asylum in New Orleans. There they found 75 starving boys crowded into the orphanage. The sisters begged for food, found benefactors, and thanks to the help of the Ursuline nuns nearby, they survived and thrived.
The ministry kept evolving, and as New Orleans was only a microcosm of what was happening in the United States at the time, girls had no opportunity for education.
So they took that on too, expanding, starting an industrial school for girls, 9 young pupils taught to sew. This work was for the making of coarse clothing for the slaves. And though neither very profitable nor pleasant, was accepted with gratitude, since it would provide a means of subsistence for the children and thus prove that they could support themselves. Eventually, with the help of generous friends, the sisters were able to buy some property, a block along what is now St. Claude Avenue. The price was $275. They wanted to build a school for girls. That was in 1861. That same year, Louisiana seceded from the Union, and the country was at war with itself. Despite Union occupation of New Orleans, uncertainty, and food shortages, the sisters started building. In 1862, laying the cornerstone of what would become Academy of Holy Angels. They awarded their first high school diploma 5 years later. The next 4 decades would see enrollment rise and fall, but by the early 1900s, the sisters knew that no matter the enrollment, the teachers themselves would need more education. The early 1900s saw the world take flight. The silver screen came to life in movie theaters popping up across the country. The assembly line helped make motor cars more than a novelty, competing with electrified streetcars for space on new roads. Soon, the streetcar passed right in front of the Academy of Holy Angels, bringing students in and taking sisters out to teach in Marianite schools forming all across the New Orleans region.
And at one time, probably the Marianites had more schools in New Orleans, metropolitan New Orleans, and probably the state than any other religious order of women.
The Marianites were already conducting teacher training classes. Priest professors were brought in to teach and help widen their worldview, but they knew they would eventually need state certification. They took the bold step and appealed to lawmakers in Baton Rouge.
Everybody loves a baby, that's why I'm in love with you, pretty baby.
In 1916, the song Pretty Baby was one of the most popular tunes in the country.
Pretty baby.
It was the year that saw the formation of the National Park Service. The first woman elected to Congress, Jeanette Rankin of Montana, took her seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. The Saturday Evening Post began a new tradition featuring a Norman Rockwell painting on its front cover. And in New Orleans, on July 6, 1916, a college was created.
Be it enacted by the General Assembly of the State of Louisiana.
The state had given the Marianites approval to be a college, to hand out diplomas and give degrees from what would be known as the College Department. It was a milestone, but it didn't take long for the sisters to realize what all of that entailed, and they weren't ready yet. They worked on strategy as they continued their education training classes. The following year, the U.S. joined the world at war, and the year after that, as World War I came to an end, New Orleans became a battleground of a different sort. The flu pandemic hit the city hard. Hospitals, makeshift wardrooms, and homes were filled with the sick, dying, and dead. There were more than 54,000 cases of flu here. Nearly 3,500 died. Schools, churches, public buildings were ordered shut down. No large gatherings, sporting events, and ceremonies. Even funerals had to be small and private. But as the threat passed and school reopened, the sisters found a higher education ally in another nearby Catholic institution. Loyola University offered to help. By allowing the sisters to earn college degrees with them, Loyola gave the Marianites the opportunity to build the staff and the status to grow their own school. So the sisters left their convent walls for university halls, many earning bachelor's degrees and more.
The sisters, when the college first started, didn't have enough sisters to actually teach, in the college. And to me, it's very edifying that they went back and they got courses at Loyola University so that they could get masters and come back and teach the rest of the sisters. To me, that's that passing on of what you learn from one person to the next.
During those years, the non-certified teachers training continued at the academy until eventually in 1932, the State Board of Education gave its stamp of approval to Holy Cross Normal School, a 2-year program. 29 sisters enrolled in the fall. From there, they would go to Loyola or other Catholic colleges and universities in and out of state.
The normal school, the Our Lady of Holy Cross College or the Academy of Holy Angels college department was chartered as a normal school. And that was the terminology that was used, not only in Louisiana but throughout the country, that there were many, quote, normal schools, which were schools to educate and to certify teachers.
In 1938, the sisters proved they could meet current requirements, and the state gave them permission to operate a 4-year college under the name Holy Cross Normal College. Tuition was set at $10 per course, summer school, including room and board, $90. In 1941, they changed the name to Academy of the Holy Angels College Department, eventually shortened to Holy Angels College. At their first graduation the following year, more than 30 sisters received diplomas. With the convent and the classes filling up, they all knew they were running out of room. They would cross that bridge when they came to it, literally. In the mid-1940s, the soldiers came home. World War II was over. There was a new president. Harry Truman was now in office. Jackie Robinson was playing first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And the world witnessed the magic of the Polaroid as pictures appeared in the palm of their hand. At the Academy on Rampart, new sisters were joining the ranks of the Marianites. The college department opened its doors to other religious sisters as well. And soon, even lay teachers in the many Marianite-run schools were taking college classes.
When we got in to the convent and started school, we went to this one little room that was called the normal room, that had been named that from when we had a normal school. You took 2 courses until you finished. There was no semester break. You finished one, you started the other. You were off for holidays, naturally, We kept going until we finished.
They needed more space to live and to learn. The answer to their prayers would come from seemingly far away, from a place many of them had never been, across the river on the West Bank. Developer Ernest Norman and his wife Elsie loved the Marianites and their mission to educate, and they wanted the sisters, the teachers, to have their own place. In 1947, they offered them a 40-acre tract of wooded land in the area known as Aurora Gardens. There were already some homes in the area, but much of it was still undeveloped. The only stipulation on the donation, to use the land for religious and educational purposes.
Woodland Highway was a shell road until 1958, I believe, is when they paved it. It was a 4-lane shell road where the cars would go down at 60, 65 miles an hour, and it would be a cloud of white dust over everything.
Looking beyond the dust and the trees, the Marianites could see a future. Figuring it would take at least $1 million to build, they began more than a decade of fundraising. They wanted to have 1/3 of the money before they would even start. A support guild was formed. Even sisters were asked to buy a brick for $1 to have ownership in the new project. By 1958, they were all posing for pictures for the groundbreaking. Construction took 18 months. At 2:30 in the afternoon of Saturday, April 2nd, 1960, a crowd of nearly 1,000 people came to witness the dedication and blessing of the new provincial house, novitiate, and college. A big storm was pushing in that day, and umbrellas were popping up as Archbishop Rummel blessed the new facilities. Soon, everything was moved indoors to get out of the rain.
When I came as an 8th grader, the building was dedicated, yes. And it was a horrendous day. The rains could not be worse. Mud. I kept thinking the poor sister's going to have to clean all of this up because they didn't have custodial staff. It was the sisters who did the cleaning. So all I could think of is all these people tracing through this building.
It stormed big time. My mother was so upset because when they let everybody go through the house, through the convent to see where we would be and what have you, the floors were shining like glass. And almost to her death, my mother still talked about the mess that we tracked through the convent, and all those floors had to be cleaned again because it was such a mess on the day of the dedication.
2 days later, the Marianites moved in, leaving behind the familiar at Academy of Holy Angels.
You could hear the oohs and ahs as we crossed over. Wow, ooh, look at me. Oh, we live over there. You know, I remember somebody pointing out, over there, can you see down there by the turn? That's where Holy Angels is.
We thought we were going out to the boondocks. I think we cried all the way across the river because we had no idea what this place was like.
We came here, Holy Cross was here, but none of these subdivisions were here, and so it was kind of like the college in the woods.
It was all so new and clean. Fresh chalkboards, bright white walls, lots of windows, modern conveniences like a PA system. There was air conditioning and a brand new cafeteria kitchen.
Coming from an old setting that we had at Holy Angels, it was just like a whole new world.
They did bring with them to this new world some of the old furniture from the academy. Even the chandelier in the front hall moved with them. One thing that did not make the move, the name. In honor of the first school set up by their founder in France, Notre Dame de Sainte-Croix. It would now be known as Our Lady of Holy Cross College, the first and only 4-year college on the West Bank.
Now, the very first night we were here, it was great silence, but I heard this unusual noise, and we were 2 sisters to a room, and I said to one of the other sisters, "What's that?" And she said, "Nutria." And I said, "What's that?" "Shh, I'll tell you tomorrow morning."
For a while, there were a lot of new sights and sounds. Learning what an armadillo was, watching for snakes when they went outside. Education by experience.
At recreation time, I guess I was a novice by then, sometimes we would go outside, and Sister Mary Carmel taught us PE. Well, what she would do sometimes, we'd march around, and then she gave us a sickle, and would cut grass. That was part of our PE credit.
The 47 acres that we owned, this little piece of property had been cleaned, but the rest of it, the postulants and novices and temporary professed, cleaned it during their recreation. Cleared it. Literally cleared it. Pulling, cutting. Oh yeah, we can do just about anything.
The Marianites lived here, worked here, went to school here. This was more room than they had ever had, but their own space was still quite small. Tiny rooms, their personal quarters, were often shared.
They were really cubicles. You know, you had the basics, the bed, the sink. You didn't have the bathroom. You had common bathrooms and showers. So we used to always tease about having to leave the room to change our minds. It was so small. You could really hop out of bed, put your feet on the ground, and lean over to the basin to brush your teeth. So it was kind of small.
They are some tiny rooms, and let's put it this way. Once your single bed was in there, you didn't get to rearrange the furniture.
While not cloistered, they spent much of their time here in prayer and in silence. No talking in the halls was more than just a suggestion.
The things I remember is we were trained, of course, to be more religious-like, what everybody thought was a religious. So I remember being told I needed to lower the tone of my voice. Now, I wasn't talking in the halls, and I needed to slow down my walk. So I was working at that as I walked these halls.
All of the sisters in the black veil, you could not speak to them. So if they had classes with us, then we got to speak with them then, and we got to play ball with them.
And although they did not get to speak much, when they were permitted to talk, they were expected to speak both quietly and correctly.
But I was also sent to special classes by Mother Adrian, because I was born and raised in the 9th Ward, and she wanted to teach me how to put G on the end of moving, walking, flying. I was still saying dis, dat, dem, and doze.
We had to try out for the choir, so she'd make us sing the scale up and down, you know, and I didn't know much about music. And so she went through it and she said, okay, you're next. And so we came up and, to try, and she said, just sing the scale for me. And she gave me an example, which I can't do for you. And she said, okay, now sit right here and I'll come back to you. She hasn't come back yet. I'm still not singing in the choir.
The novices, postulants, and sisters would settle in here, turning this generous donation of land into a thriving center of education.
As I say, my grandmother, she talked about the college and the nuns a great deal after my grandfather passed away. And it was just a fondness that's hard to describe. There was an affinity there that, as I say, it's hard to put into words. I don't know exactly what she'd say, but she was from England, and it would be with a British accent.
The next few years at the college would bring changes in curriculum and in culture. As the 1960s rolled in, so did social and political change, civil rights sit-ins and marches. A new wall was built in Berlin. A new flag flew over the United States, one with 50 stars, reflecting the admission of Hawaii to the Union.
5, 4,
The first Catholic president promised a man on the moon by the end of the decade.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
It was a season of change for Our Lady of Holy Cross College as well, as the sisters embraced their new home, their new school name.
My diploma says Academy of the Holy Angels College Department. That's what it was called for years. That was my diploma. My class in 1961 received the last of those diplomas. The next class received Our Lady of Holy Cross College. And you can also see like a little black on this, where my hands were. It was the middle of July. We were in serge habits, the full habit. My hands were sweating, and it showed through on the parchment. So,
our graduation took place in the community room, which is probably this area right here. It was then the community room. And they sat up, you know, a row of 2 or 3 sets of chairs. And we weren't given anything. We were just announced that we had graduated, and they said our names. That was it. That was graduation. And I believe there might have been punch and cookies after. We have so many occasions with punch and cookies, I get them confused.
Those graduation classes would grow as the college began admitting lay teachers from both the archdiocese and public schools.
We had silence all day long. So when we went to class, and we got to talk to the lay people, you know, and they spoke to us, so we had to respond. So that was kind of exciting. We got to talk.
Soon they were talking about new programs and adding majors and minors and finding a way to pay off the mortgage. In 1963, to help pay off the building debt, the sisters decided to put on a fair. They enlisted the help of every Marianite school in the area.
Every school operated a number of booths, and then you also provided entertainment. So you had to train the students in your school to provide a number of performing acts on stage so that it would draw in the people.
And as that weekend approached, no one knew what to expect.
And I can remember clearly, he sat in the parlor with my mother and my sister, and he said, "Honey, I don't want you to be disturbed by this," big tears in his eyes. "Daddy's here to tell you there is no way this is going to work." He said there are too many people involved. They cleared $18,000 in April of 1963.
It became a yearly event, and eventually, those fairs helped get them to the day when they could burn the mortgage on the building. 1967 was a milestone for the college. A lot happened that year to change the look of things inside and out. That year, the sisters added a large new chapel to the campus, with a prominent steeple enhancing the college profile.
The section that we're sitting in now was actually dedicated about 2 months after we entered. That was in October of 1967. It was also the first year that men came to Our Lady of Holy Cross College. So we were all excited about men coming to the college, only to find out that they were all seminarians, about 6 of them. Over the years, that has changed tremendously, but we were very excited to know that every now and then we would see a guy.
The college was now co-ed. 1967 also saw the sisters themselves change into new habits. The Pope had issued a statement calling for sisters of all orders to modify their habits, and the Marianites made a new look for themselves. Actually, their original habits had been made to reflect the dress of the day, but that was in France in the early 1800s. Their new habits would be a bit different from that.
It was 1967. They had just changed the habit. It was the time of the miniskirt, and our habit at that time was a very long gray skirt, a light blue blouse, long sleeves, with a chapel veil on our heads. So throughout the day, walking through the halls, people would stop us and say, "Ma'am, you have your chapel veil on?" And I'd say, "No, that's part of my habit." And they'd go,
The hallways were definitely starting to look different. New fashions, new faces, even in the leadership. As the school sought to gain critical recognition, a lay governing board was put into place. That change helped the school achieve higher standing in the academic world. Our Lady of Holy Cross received accreditation by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools.
For many, many years, this college served as more as a certification landing spot for young people who wanted to be teachers, ultimately. So it was a teacher's college, which is, there's no better calling than that of being a teacher.
And even as education courses remained a major focus, the college wanted to grow in opportunities. That included after-hours classes, enrolling older students, and offering options.
At this time, the college was the back half of the convent in many ways. So my perspective was of the convent. I'm not going to the convent for a college, right? But it turned out to be the best experience of my life. We had students who were like myself, or late teens, but also others who were coming back to school for another career. And I learned from them as much as my teachers, about life.
They had daytime classes, nighttime classes. I mean, it was the kind of school that reached, I think, across the divide of the traditional 18-year-old just out of high school student and began that process of looking to get the older students, the people who were maybe in their mid-20s or early 30s who wanted to get the education they thought would bring them more success in their life. And I think Holy Cross was right there at the right time.
Particularly the last 50 years, I mean, it's evolved from basically a teacher's college, as many small Catholic universities have evolved from. But the big change here, I think, is the beginning of the nursing school and beginning of the counseling school.
In 1984, the addition of a 4-year nursing program brought in new students with new directions, a perfect fit with the mission of the college. The vision of the nursing and eventually allied health department promotes justice, respect, excellence, and stewardship as core values.
Because life is tough. The curriculum's tough and life is tough. And our students, many of them are working students. They're taking care of families. So there's a lot of extraneous things going on. So to be in an environment when you know the faculty wants you to succeed, they're going to walk the walk with you, I think has to make a difference.
She was there to support me when I didn't do well on my exams. She was there to offer advice, offer prayers, to help me succeed. So I wanted to give back to the students some of the positive things that I have as a nurse, and some of the things that I did try to deter them from doing. So that's why I came back to teach.
From its simple beginnings with a graduating class of 9 to a popular and prominent and state-of-the-art program, nursing continues to grow and compete.
We have a 12-bed lab that provides a safe environment for students to practice with. Our students are in the clinical area in all the institutions throughout the area. And of course, when they arrive at the institution, there's no on-the-job training. They've got to go to work. So the lab provides a safe environment for them to practice skills.
I think what Holy Cross has done in the last many years down this path of allied health and nursing is just brilliant. Our society will always need nurses, and they will always need well-trained allied health professionals, and they will always need places like Holy Cross who are churning out what has a reputation of being one of the very best nursing schools in the region of the United States.
That same year, a master's program in education was added to the list of degrees. This was a huge growth period for the college. For the first time, a non-Marianite was in the president's office. There were additional program options. And as more and more students discovered Our Lady of Holy Cross, more and more were seeing the value in this college on the West Bank.
I think I must be one of those people with not as much vision as I should have. I remember when they started, I called it the policeman's program. And I'm thinking, policemen, what are we doing training policemen? But what a wonderful opening that was.
A couple police officers that I knew were coming here, and they raved about the place. They said it's very individualized, the classes are very small, the teacher is very involved with you, and it was an amazing opportunity to take someone like me who had very little training in education and help me to succeed and get a college education and graduate with a bachelor's degree in applied behavioral science in 1987.
Many called this the hidden gem on the West Bank, but word was getting around. This was a place focused on educating the whole person in a welcoming, nurturing, encouraging atmosphere.
First day I walked in to come to the college to talk about getting my master's degree, I walked in the front door, and lo and behold, on the right-hand side in the hallway, there was another door that was open, and Father Tom Chambers was sitting in an office as the president. I walked in and I asked him where the front office was, and he said, "It's here." And I said, "Well, this says the president." He said, "Come right on in."
He had a candy jar in addition to the open door. It was to have a conversation with students. Sometimes students, of course, are experiencing anxiety, especially new students, or people just coming to check out the place. And there's nothing like giving them a little baby Ruth, just a little treat to say, look, in addition to the conversation, here's just an act of kindness, enjoy, And to this day, I keep remembering the candy jar moments.
Father Tom Chambers came to Our Lady of Holy Cross College in 1987, and wanting to build on the success of the past, helped move the college further into the future.
So he put together a structure of what a college university should look like. His experience at the University of Notre Dame, his experience as academic vice president at Ursuline College in Ohio, prepared him well to be the president here at the time that he arrived.
Right away, he wanted to not only expand its reach, but its walls as well. The need for a new library was evident.
So he arrived in 1987 and only knew one or two folks in New Orleans. And so they introduced him to the people that he should get to know. And one of them was Blaine Kern. So Blaine introduced him and opened up many doors for Father in the community.
Blaine Kern is a very generous gentleman, and he is a gentleman. He was a gift, and I know how wonderful he has been helping students. That library was important to me and the college.
The year was 1990, and the new library had a new name. Now able to boast of online catalogs, email, and the latest computer technology, the college itself was advancing, adding and building, making huge strides in new areas. One of them, the addition of a counseling program, one that would teach and reach.
The nuns, that's actually what they were here doing, counseling in their own, in their own spiritual right. That's what they were doing. And I mean, the atmosphere and the culture, it just spilled over into everything here. And now, anytime you look at people's resume, when I see Our Lady of Holy Cross, I know that we're getting a good counselor, or else I can recommend them because I know what they received, because I know what I got from the school.
Eventually growing to be one of the feature degree programs, counseling began as an extension of the education department, another way to train people to help others.
We needed to get some men and women to be educated in this particular way. So I was happy because it went well. Wow, it's going to be around for many, many years.
With its own separate space, the Thomas E. Chambers Counseling Center offered not only education, but real-world experience.
Before I left, I knew I was ready, I was equipped. Not only did I have the theory work, but I also had hands-on experience. And that was very, very important, especially for what I'm doing now. Had not I come to Holy Cross, I don't think I'd be as effective as I am now. This was the place.
Counseling quickly grew into its own PhD program, with a center for training and community outreach. Staffed with postmaster interns and those working on the clinical portion of their master's program, the center provides free counseling for students and low-cost counseling for the community, all supervised by licensed professionals.
And very few people realize that we are one of only 62 universities in America that has a certified PhD program in counseling. We have a national reputation and an international reputation in being a center for great counseling.
Situated in a safe and beautiful suburban location, the campus was commuter-friendly, pretty to look at, plenty of parking. But for some on the East Bank, there was always the issue of waiting on a ferry or the prospect of crossing the bridge. While the existence of the Greater New Orleans Bridge undoubtedly helped the growth of the West Bank, the single span over the Mississippi River was often overcrowded, and bridge controls to regulate traffic could make the commute long and unpredictable.
Because you never knew what you were going to encounter. You didn't cross the bridge without an article to read or something else, because you could be stuck on the middle of the bridge for a half hour.
Native New Orleanians have this East Bank, West Bank thing, but to anybody who's from some place like Los Angeles, the rod here is very short. Just that bridge becomes a psychological factor for some people.
In 1988, relief came in the form of a second span, which made the commute from the East Bank faster and more dependable. Our Lady of Holy Cross College suddenly became a workable choice for many more prospective students.
But our population, is from every zip code in the metropolitan area of New Orleans. We have significant presence. We have as many kids here from Metairie as we have from the West Bank. We have kids here from Slidell, Mandeville, Lafitte, home of Thibodeau, the river parishes. So we're a metropolitan school.
As enrollment increased and new departments and degree programs were added, it was obvious the school would need to find space. The convent, housed in the front part of the original building, was still a part of the college. Over the years, the sisters had been giving up pieces of their own space as it was needed for classrooms or cafeteria, common areas, whatever. In 1993, the Marianites made a difficult, self-sacrificing choice.
When we gave up the front part to move back to Holy Angels, that was very, very difficult for some of our older sisters. But the decision was made around mission, because mission is primary to who we are and what we are about.
They moved out of their home, making room for more students. What had once been small bedrooms became offices, community rooms, classrooms. The sisters were still a major presence on campus and on the board, but this space was now all college. In late August of 2005, the mission of Our Lady of Holy Cross College crossed into new territory. The campus became an emergency operations center. For 6 weeks, it was a base for emergency responders and state and parish officials. Even the president stopped here as he surveyed the devastation left by the storm. The school itself survived the hit from Katrina, but many of the students and faculty, many who lived nearby, were struggling.
Said, look, Holy Cross is here. Holy Cross is reaching out to help. Anything we could do to help. We can't do everything, but we'll do what we can. And for many, I learned later that that message of living out our mission, perhaps in a different way than what we do most times, but was still a place and a message of support and help and fulfillment for those going through such trying circumstances.
The core mission has never changed here.
You come into the school and you see the Catholic identity. You know that this is a Catholic institution, and we're all called as Christians, as Catholics, to serve one another. The young people coming out have that initiative to not just look after themselves and say, I'm going to go out and make a lot of money and not worry about the rest of the community, but I'm going to go out and share what I've gotten from the University of Holy Cross with the broader community.
Well, the mission of the University of Holy Cross is similar to the mission of all the Holy Cross universities in America, and that is to educate the mind, but not at the expense of the heart. And what that means is we're trying to create the whole person, not only an educated person, but a person who is also concerned about his fellow man and who is willing to be tolerant towards the diversity in the world in which we live.
In January of 2016, Our Lady of Holy Cross College officially became the University of Holy Cross, now reflecting its opportunities in advanced degrees. Ownership of the university has been placed in the hands of the Board of Trustees, although Marianites will always have seats on the board and a voice in the mission.
One of the quotes of Father Morrow is that Holy Cross is not a human work. It's the work of God. It will continue as long as it's a work of God.
Moving forward, the school remains proud of the past and of all those who've gone before, rooted in the faith that is so vital to its mission.
Catholicism obviously is an integral part of the program at the University of Holy Cross. You walk on campus, there's a crucifix above the doorways. You can walk into the chapel and have a quiet moment of prayer. All of those things, I think, play into our role here at the university to help educate the whole person.
Because of who we are in the university, we're able to do some things that you couldn't do in other environments. One ceremony we have is called the White Coat Blessing of the Hands ceremony. Every spring, when our new clinical students are about to go out into the hospital to start taking care of patients, we have a ceremony in the Morrow Center. They receive their white coats, and their hands are also blessed by our campus minister. So their hands are blessed as they go out to begin to touch and take care of patients. It's a beautiful, beautiful ceremony.
When you come on this campus, you know you're part of the Holy Cross family, and you know that we know your name and you're not just a number, and we're concerned about you in particular. So in the Holy Cross family, everybody knows what's expected of them. Everybody knows that they're expected to be disciplined, to be knowledgeable, and to be concerned about their fellow man.
To that end, service is built into the curriculum, giving back, helping others, from volunteers who help with educational needs, community counseling, free tax assistance from business students. True success, they know, comes with service. Real experience comes with each class taught here.
Again, part of the success of the university is the hands-on learning, the practical experience that is provided to our students, whether it's in the master's program, whether it's in the nursing program, or in the regular undergrad program. Those types of things are what really separates our students from the rest. They go out into the real world, and I think they're equipped, not only from an academic background, but from an experience and practical background as well.
The goal at the University of Holy Cross is a well-rounded education of heart and mind. Education that goes beyond the books, learning that leadership is better with kindness. Character always matters, and struggles are often blessings. And here, no one has to go it alone.
I try to, talk to the students and be encouraging to them and tell them don't give up. Things happen. We may not understand it at that moment, but things happen, and if this is what you truly want to do, if you want to become a nurse, you can do it. Don't let obstacles get in your way. You can do it.
I often say to students, we'll walk this journey with you. We're not going to lower the standard, but we'll walk it with you, and we'll be right there with you.
I could tell you stories that where kids have just lost their way because nobody was paying attention to them, and then they just kind of felt the love that we have here, and they felt at home. And again, go back to the word nurturing, they felt like somebody cared about them.
Classes are small, personal attention is big. With classrooms and courtyards filled with natural light, even the physical structure of the campus enhances the welcoming atmosphere.
You'll never come to an introduction to biology class here that's 200 kids in the class. The biggest class I think we probably have here is maybe 30 or 35. So there's a big difference of not having, we don't have a classroom that'll hold 200. So there's no way we could even have a class that big. So you always have relatively small size classes here.
There's more to it here than just attending class. Certainly students are taught the knowledge and skills needed to succeed, but UHC graduates also understand the importance of confidence, character, and Christian values in their lives. Success is measured both in and out of the classroom. This is a place of academic and personal growth.
Like when I came here, really I didn't know anybody, but when I left, I knew everybody. And everybody knew me. And that was very important. We always had small classes, which again was a big plus, because we felt that we could be like family in the class, and everybody had their personal experience, but we were able to adapt and help one another.
One of the things that's very, very strong and powerful about a Holy Cross education is what I refer to as the pride of exit, not entrance. The pride that comes in a Holy Cross education is the difference, the transformation that happens over the course of 4 or 5 years when a young man or woman is here. So we can take you here, but we'll educate you so when you graduate, you are here.
This school has changed. Those who teach and lead have changed. And those who walk its halls and cross this stage are changed for good.
We all enjoy is the success witnessed in graduation. And, you know, when those kids walk across the stage and you know them, and you know what they've been through, and you know that they now have accomplished this. I mean, we've accomplished something too. That's a moment of pride that not only for the student, but for the faculty and the staff who's here for them to see them succeed.
Very proud of them. They have made it. Some students had obstacles. They have made it through those obstacles and changes in their lives, and they have succeeded. Walk across the stage, get their degree. That is a very proud moment for the school and for the faculty to see them succeed in that.
From here, their walk carries the distinction of experience and knowledge that comes with a diploma from the University of Holy Cross. They are walking legacies of generations before them who built and sacrificed, studied and taught, people who thought of others before themselves, and now they will leave behind their own legacy.
You have to remind people of the depth of the history of our faith, the depth and the history of our people, the depth and the history of the world, so that they understand, so that they get a better picture of what the world is really about. And Holy Cross College gave that to me as a young person, and it stayed with me throughout my life, and I hope that all the students who come here, it stays with them throughout their life.
What this is about the journey of learning, the journey of the truth, the journey of discovery, the journey of transferring knowledge to another generation.
Now the school will grow as a university, building dorms, adding daycare, expanding opportunities in sports, all of the special things that come with campus life. The University of Holy Cross will continue to offer options for the commuter students, those furthering their education, those who find the accommodating class schedule workable for them. But the future will also be for that traditional freshman experience, living here, learning here, embracing the legacy of a Holy Cross education.
Even though as we grow, we know we'll never get big enough to where we're going to forget about why we're here and what we're doing.
I think our faculty academically is always looking for what's the next thing we should teach, what's the next thing we should provide our students with, what are they going to need in the 21st century. It's always fresh, it's always being looked at, it's not stale, it's a vibrant living thing.
Well, it's not keeping up, you have to be ahead of the curve. We don't want to keep up with anybody. We want to be in the front of the line, and so we want to lead. And that's what our university is going to do. We're going to lead through the next decades and lead the next generation of leaders into our community as graduates of the University of Holy Cross.
In the past 100 years, the University of Holy Cross, with its different names and different faces, has changed history, educating those who help, teach, lead. And going forward, that will continue with new paths and directions. It's a story of dedication and determination, of struggle and success, of mission and Marianites. The University of Holy Cross celebrates its milestones while stepping into a future of promise, purpose, and possibilities.
University of Holy Cross, a century of teaching the mind and heart, is made possible by Phyllis M. Taylor, Joseph and Sue Ellen Canizero, Dr. and Mrs. David Buck Landry, Marianites of Holy Cross, the Ray and Jessica Brandt Family Foundation, Scott and Jane Wolfe, Philip and Donna Blanchard, Joe and Aaron Caruso, Jerry and Jack Stumpf Jr., Gulf Coast Bank and Trust Company, 5th District Savings Bank, and by James and Marcia Hubbard, Milton and Susan Lackey, Mike and Terry Lopez, and Ken and Betty Tedesco.